let me introduce us and get us on the road. I'm Paula Constant. I'm the chair of the Women's Network for BT. I'm a director in Openreach, one of BT's lines of business. This is an amazing event. It's brilliant to see so many people here. And I was reflecting with Vicky, who's my co-chair, somewhere around here, probably in the back, getting organised, getting people here. That this time last year, when Vicky and I just kind of set out as part of the network, we bravely, for International Women's Day, organised a male panel of our best speakers. We've got the CFO, Tony Chamugan. We had all these men preparing on the day of the operating committee, you know, not reading all their business notes, but kind of thinking panically about what they were going to present on behalf of the Women's Network. That was one of our first big events, and we have come really far in the last year. In terms of the external presence we've got, the networks that we're involved in, the initiatives we're doing with STEM, with other businesses, and lots of little things along the way. And one of the reflections that I had in my job, because I'm the director of a big field team in Openreach, is a book that I'm reading to my 6-month-old baby boy called We're Going on a Bear Hunt. I don't know if anyone reads it. Yeah, everyone knows it, right? It's the only one with words in it, right? So it's my favourite book compared to the pictures. And we're challenged in Openreach at the moment because we're kind of on this big bear hunt to fix our business, and we're trying to find different ways to go over it, to go under it, to go round it. You know this, if you know the story, you know the story. Lots of different engineering techniques, and I think the Women's Network is just the same. Every day we make tiny but really significant gains, going round, going over, going under all the traditional ways to do business. We've got women's clothing now for our female engineers. Crazy idea. We're even going to branch out to maternity clothing next month. We've got men and women coming to us for maternity and paternity guidance and a whole wave of activity, you know, in that sphere. We've got lots of initiatives around getting more women into operational roles and up the ladder onto executive roles. It feels like a transformed world from a Women's Network perspective from where we were a year ago. And I think on International Women's Day, when you know you could reflect that it's going to take 80 more years to get to parity. You know, it's a long, long journey. I think we should just take a moment to think about the brilliant journey that we've all come on in BT for the last year, and the fact that we're here with, you know, an amazing panel of speakers that have come here to talk to us today about the great opportunities for women in business now and in the future. So I'm hugely excited about today. I'm really glad that you're here. And I'd like to show you a few videos about what we're doing in BT's Women's Network, but also the two charities that are here supporting us today. Over to you guys.
Hi everyone, my name is Vicky Cadman and I'm the co-chair of the BT Women's Network. I wanted to take a few minutes to tell you who we are and what we do. I've been in the role of co-chair for just over 18 months alongside the fabulous Paula Constant. The network has transformed in that time. I took on the role of co-chair because I wanted BT women to get the same support and inspiration that I've had in my career. We decided quite quickly though that to be successful we needed a team of inspiring women on board who were as passionate as we were and who wanted to champion and inspire BT women. Areas like marketing and comms, so that we can share what we've done, our website, where we encourage members to discuss key topics and read our published content, which is great by the way. And then of course we've all got busy day jobs, so we need someone to keep us on track with our objectives, and that's why we've got a great project manager in the form of Laura Jane. It's really important though that the Women's Network is impacting the business in a positive way, and that we're helping BT to achieve its diversity aims. So we put together a plan around some key objectives. Some of them are quite topical nationally, such as getting more women into STEM jobs. And just recently we've launched a mentoring programme for A-level ladies with our industry competitors. So it's really exciting that at business level we compete with these people, but from a network point of view we're working together to inspire A-level women to look at a career in STEM after school. Increasing the women at the exec table is so important because it makes sure that we invest in our pipeline of talent at the start and middle of their career, and that we try and get more future female leaders into the business and across the UK. We're trying to include men as much as possible because they too have a vested interest in women in business, because every one of them has a female family member, wife, child, friend, someone who works and wants to be a success in business. So we encourage them to contribute, support us, help us to achieve all the things that we're trying to set out to do. Right now though, we feel we've created a great platform to go on and do great things, but we'd love you to help us.
Hi, I'm James Adeleke, founder of Generation Success. Generation Success was founded after the London riots, when people were saying that this was a lost generation. We had the youth saying, we don't have the skills, we don't have the connections, and there is a recession, there are no jobs. We were founded by a bunch of students who did not want to listen to all that noise, who wanted to be part of the change. Originally we just started just to make a difference and just to tackle food and clothes poverty and social mobility. That was 2011. In 2016 that'll be 5 years. And our journey has not finished yet. Our vision is a world where we all have equal access and equal opportunities to jobs and careers that we aspire to have. No matter our background, no matter of education, no matter status, we want to equal that playing field. The way we do that is through our two missions: social mobility, and we do that through our talks where we bring in fantastic, amazing business leaders who share their knowledge and expertise to a diverse audience of students, professionals, entrepreneurs, those who are unemployed, and even those who are just searching for the next step in life. We then have a second mission, which is social action, which is mentoring and our food and clothes drive, how we started. Every day we strive to achieve that vision and our mission. Every day we want people like yourselves who are watching this video to join us and be part of a generation of success. We are proud of our association with BT Women's Network. They share the same values that we have, of equal opportunities for all.
Hi BT Women's Network, I'm Sophie Tredgett, a lawyer here at BT, and am a proud member of the network. I'm also a trustee on the board of the Women's Trust through BT's NED scheme. So let me tell you about the Women's Trust. Well, it's a small, independent London charity offering counselling and support services to women who are affected by domestic violence. Services are delivered by volunteer counsellors who have been specifically trained by Women's Trust on domestic violence. And it relies completely on donations and grants to fund its work. For example, £8 pays for 1 hour of childcare so that a woman can use the service. £50 pays for 1 counselling session, £100 room hire for 10 sessions. I'm delighted that the network has chosen to support Women's Trust, and we are really looking forward to working together.
Women's Trust services make a huge difference to the lives of women who are experiencing domestic violence. We know that the impact of domestic violence is very long-lasting on women. It doesn't stop just because the perpetrator has physically been removed from the woman, or even if there has been a conviction. It's much longer term. Many women suffer from depression, low self-esteem, low self-confidence, and have a sense of powerlessness. They find it very difficult to cope with everyday life. That includes holding up a job, but it also often includes having healthy relationships with their family members.
I came into contact with the Women's Trust the day after I left my abusive relationship. I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and I was seeking answers to my questions because I'm usually a very strong person, and I could not believe that something like that could have happened to someone like me. The Women's Trust was great. They gave me the chance to attend some counselling sessions through which I could find the answers that I was looking for. And I was able to understand the dynamics of domestic violence through those counselling sessions. To a woman in a violent relationship, I'd say to speak up, seek help, because there is help out there and it's possible to recover. It's possible to still have a life after having experienced something so atrocious. But, you know, there's always light at the end of the tunnel, and the Women's Trust is a great charity to go to when in need of help.
Thank you guys so much for coming today. I'm on stage for two reasons. First, I'm here to announce that we're holding a raffle to raise money for both Generation Success and the BT Women's Trust. And then secondly, I'll be asking Dr. Yvonne Thompson to come on stage. So for those who don't know, the raffle is £3 per raffle ticket, and the prizes are 1 hour's coaching with Jenny Garrett, a world-renowned author and life coach. The second prize is with Game Changer Consultancy, and they're giving us two prizes worth $2,500 and also $1,800 as well, all to help women or individuals reach the next step in their careers. So that is the raffle. And now, now I want to firstly thank you the panel, but also thank you, Dr. Yvonne Thompson, for giving up your time to speak today. You are a role model to many people. You've achieved many things in your life, including being one of the founding directors of Choice FM, being honoured on the Honours List. You've written your book as well, which a lot of people have asked me questions about as well. I'm sure you guys will get me off stage, so can you guys give me a round of applause, make some noise, stomp your feet for Dr. Yvonne Thompson.
Thank you so much, everyone. Can everybody hear me? Good, good, good. I'd like to add a copy of my book to the raffle. So, there you go. Another prize, another opportunity to win. So I'm going to start off by saying thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight or this evening. Thank you very much, James. Thank you very much, Paula and Vicky. I almost said Nikki. Vicky, for inviting me along. It's an absolute honour to be here. So as James has said, I'm going to be talking about my book in a moment. But before I do, I want to try an experiment. And I need someone on stage to volunteer. None of you in the front, because you're all speakers. But I'd like someone to... Oh, no, I know you. I know you. I know you. There's a lady way up the back there who's jumping around. Yeah. I promise it's nothing where you have to close your eyes or put your hands out anyway. What's your name?
Mariana.
Mariana. Good to meet you. Good to meet you.
Want me to take your pens? Yes, please.
No, she doesn't need to do that. She doesn't really need to do that. The experiment was to say and see how many of you are bold and how many of you are brave. And I always say that fortune favours the brave. So I'd like to give you a copy of my book. And that's it.
I was still looking forward to meet you.
Oh, well, there you go. Thank you, thank you. Don't worry, I've got another one for the raffle. Absolutely. So, one of these things. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a bit about myself. In order for me to tell you about the book, I have to give you a little bit of background about myself. I come from a small country on the southwest tip of South America called Guyana. How many of you have heard of Guyana? Oh, do you know, I think every time I ask, it's getting better and better, because at first it seemed like no one knew where Guyana was, and everybody used to say, do you mean Ghana? There must be a connection, because I've been to Ghana and there are a lot of people who look just like me there, so there must be a connection. So how I got to the UK, my parents were invited by Queen and Country to come to the UK to help rebuild the motherland. So they thought to themselves, if they were invited by the Queen, then everybody's going to welcome them. So they packed up themselves and 6 children and brought us to the UK. I arrived here just before I was 6 years old. I was still 5 when I arrived. And one day I seemed to be in Guyana, running around sunny fields and really enjoying myself, carefree. And then the very next day, I was in London. It was cold. I was colder than I'd ever been. I'd never seen fog before. I'd never been so scared before. And guess what? At 5, I'd never seen white people, so that was really scary. So having got over that trauma, my parents decided that, yes, it's time that they needed to find somewhere for 8 people to live. And back in the 1960s, sorry, I'll tell you about my book in a moment. Back in the 1960s, it was still legal for notices such as this to be up. I don't know, I can't really tell how many of you would have been around or remember that kind of thing. Hands up if, yes? So it was literally, landlords would have on their doors, no Irish, no blacks, no dogs, and sometimes even no children. But the same resilience that got my parents from Guyana to the UK, after about a month, it was the same resilience that helped them to find somewhere for 8 people to live. And it was a 2-room, not 2 bedrooms, 2 rooms in a basement flat in one of the worst parts of Battersea. In fact, the address is ingrained in my brain, 50 St. Joseph Street, SW11, Battersea SW11. That road no longer exists. And I always say, when I do these talks, I always say, if only I knew then what I know now. I would have encouraged my parents, or I would have bought it and kept it. It's probably a gated luxury flat community right now. So, but moving on, that's my dad. Oh, isn't he handsome? And that is, well, you can't see the whole thing, but that is the basement flat that we lived for 8 years. We were very, very poor, but it was 8 of the most exciting years for me. Having just come from South America, I was learning new things, I was running around, meeting new people. But during those 8 years actually formed or begin to form the character that I am now. During those 8 years, John F. Kennedy became president. During those 8 years, Martin Luther King had a dream and marched with 1 million men to Washington. And during those 8 years, man landed on the moon. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, what's that got to do with your character? Well, JFK was the first of the modern-day presidents to campaign for equal rights, or civil rights, I should say. And Martin Luther King, his peaceful march was campaigning for equal rights. And man landing on the moon meant that women could do anything. So I was, already beginning to say everything is possible. So I'm going to jump forward because I don't have very much time. Okay, that was me over there in the corner. That's my sister who now lives in New York somewhere. Do I still look like that? No. And that was literally the road we lived in. I think we lived down here somewhere. But it was really happy times, really, really happy times. But I'm going to jump forward now to, I suppose, one of the next most important times in my life, which was joining CBS Records, which is now Sony BMG, I think. So I worked at CBS Records for 6.5 years, and I was the only person of colour that wasn't either on the switchboard or a cleaner. And that was for 8 years. I literally, in the whole of the record company, in Soho Square, another address that will be ingrained on my brain forever. And I had a great time there as well. I learnt lots of things, met loads of artists, Michael Jackson, loads and loads of different people that I think most of you will have forgotten by now because it was over 30 years ago. And I deputised on several occasions for people who were higher up the ladder than I was, for instance, head of press. And I applied for head of press 3 times and didn't get the job. And on the 3rd time, I decided that it was time for me to leave. When I was refused, I ran into the ladies' toilets, cried my eyes out, came back and handed my notice in. Does that sound familiar to anybody? If you dare admit. Yeah, it was really, really frustrating. And I handed my notice in, and 3 weeks later, I was gone. Because I said to myself, the only way for me to move up was to move out. And that's exactly what I did. So during the 3 weeks, everybody was saying, oh, you can't leave. What about the free records, the free T-shirts, the free lunches, the free cinema tickets, all the celebrities you will not meet anymore, on and on and on and on. And that was from the company side. From my personal side, my family was saying, how can you leave a perfectly good job? What about your daughter? At that time, I had a 5-year-old daughter. How could you leave this job? What are you doing? You know, all the things mothers say, don't do it, don't do it, don't start your own company. And what I had to do was block out what I call white noise and just keep my focus on my focus. How many of you have seen Karate Kid, the original one? The original one. Okay, so you all know Mr. Miyagi. And right at the very end, when they were having the international competition at the dojo, there was Daniel all broken and limping, and Mr. Miyagi was saying, go back in. And he said, before he did, he said, Daniel-san, if you want to achieve anything in life, you have to find your focus and focus on your focus. So I always remembered that because it's one of my favourite films. I watched it about 2 weeks ago on Sky, the new one. And so I focused on my focus and decided I'm leaving, I'm going to start my PR company. Now, the PR company I started was the first black-owned PR company in the UK, according to PR Week, which is the industry paper. I also, during that time, I met 2 guys who were going to change my life forever. I'd worked with them before on the first black monthly glossy magazine. Does anybody know what that was called? Root. Who said Root? Oh, well, you get a book. And so Root magazine. So I worked for the first black monthly glossy publication, and I started the first black monthly, PR company. I was approached by the 2 guys that I worked with on Root, Neil Kenlock and Patrick Berry, and they said, because you're in the music industry, you can get us free records, you can do this, you can do that, you know all the DJs, you can help us out. Come and join our group. I was invited to be one of the founding members of Choice FM. And of course I grabbed it with open arms. But again, everybody was saying to me, how can you do that? That's so reckless. They'll never get a legal license. It's going to be a pirate radio station. You'll lose all your money. What about your daughter? You should be putting your money into, you know, her schooling and stuff like that. And then what most people said to me was, anyway, black music's never going to catch on. How wrong were they? So I joined Choice FM, and I was the only woman on the board of Choice FM. I was the only woman in the group. So I was on the board of Choice FM for 15 years. Of course, there we go, Choice FM. And I was on the board for 15 years. And yes, it was all the things that you hear about what women have to say. We don't get our voice is not heard. We're not taken seriously. And then there are some of the other things that we'd rather not talk about. But again, it was a very growing time for me. I learned a lot. And the things that I learned, I wanted to share with other women because I thought they were going to go through the same kind of process. So rather than writing, this is where my book started to kind of come into being. So rather than writing a book all about my experience, I decided that I wanted to share the experience, share and compare with other women. My book and the other achievements, yes, that is me 13 years ago. Actually, it wasn't so much a book, but a lot of the other work that I did. I was honoured by the Queen with a CBE for my work with women, minorities and small business. I also received 2 doctorates for the same, for women, minority, work I've done with women, minority and small business, and also with global diversity. But my book did get me there. So David Cameron has got my book by his bedside. It's nighttime reading, I know it is. And nobody can tell me any different. He took all my information and used it. So moving forward to the book, I was published it 18 months ago, and it was top 100 in 3 categories before it was actually released, which was really good. I've decided, as I said, to share my experience with other women. And one of the things that Oprah Winfrey says is if you gather inspiration from people who have made it in life, you start a trend. So I really wanted to start a trend and work with other women. Now, out of the women that I met about 60 women. I decided to publish 22 of their stories. And for me, they're real success stories. So I've tried to get them all on the screen. You probably won't see them all, but I'm happy to tell you who they are afterwards. And these women were fantastic. They really shared their experiences. And for me, I go with this saying that facts and figures don't inspire people, people inspire people. So I had 22 really inspiring women. And people say to me, oh, they're role models. Well, I don't think they're role models at all. I call them real models because they're really doing the work every day. It's not a role they're playing, they're really doing it. So the book, out of the information, out of all the data that I collected from these women, 22 hours of audio, 22 hours of video, lots and lots of information. And the things that were coming out of rising to the top when we were talking to them was about leadership, education, advice, diversity, lots and lots of emotional intelligence, lots and lots of resilience. I can see some heads shaking, so you know about resilience. And something I call the sidebar. And the sidebar is what they do outside of work that gives them the energy and what I call the bounce back ability to get them back into, well, I was going to say a man's world. It's not, well, let's forget that. Get them back into work. I would love to share a bit more with you on this, but I don't really have that much time to do that. But central to all of that, of course, is the person. The women's journeys, it's not just about being on the board, it's a whole journey, right through from when they entered into, right into where they are now. So, with that, with the book, we've done, in the past 18 months, we've done over 40 presentations, corporate presentations. We have spoken, I say we because I invite some of the women from the book to come and share their stories personally. We've done 18 months, over 5,000 women nationally and internationally. Yeah, we've done conferences. Last year we did Las Vegas. We did Atlanta. This year we're doing Las Vegas. It's been phenomenal. I've met people that I never thought I would. I've been places that I never thought I would. And for instance, next week I'm going to speak at International Women's Week at the UN in New York. So it's been an absolutely fascinating journey. So every time we go somewhere, people say, oh, we want to learn a bit more, what can we do? So we actually wrote a program called The Effective Board Member, and we talk about all the things we teach and train women on all the things that we've got there. In fact, that spells leaders, so the acronym for the whole course is the Leaders Course. Just as a very quick example, one of the things we talked about was resilience. So in the resilience training, we look at building your resilience, being bold, being uncomfortable in uncomfortable situations. We talk about organisational resilience. So that's a bit about the book. I do have some copies with me today, if anybody would like some. I was told that I could say that, so I've said it. And for those of you who are interested in finding out a bit more about the book, please do either write this number down, or you can, if you have a signal, text it now. I usually ask people to put their phones away, but right now I'm going to ask you all to take your phones out. Text that number, and if you put 7 traits as it is up on the screen, you'll get a link back, you'll get lots of information, you'll get some fun videos, you'll get some resources which will help you with your resilience and your emotional intelligence if you need it. I hope you've enjoyed the speech. I think my time's up, and I'd like to thank you all again for listening. I hope I provided some inspiration. Yeah, where's my water?
Fabulous. So we're now on to our panel discussion, always my favourite event. I'm sure it'll be slightly less nerve-wracking for these wonderful women than it was for our men this time last year. So I'm going to ask you all to come up and select your seat. Everyone's obviously picked the number one spot here. This is our chance to ask questions to an absolutely fabulous panel of women. We've got a couple of questions that they've pre-prepared, and then in usual style we'll probably go completely off-piste and ask lots of other questions. So I am not even going to attempt to do you a disservice by introducing you all individually. You're far better qualified to give us a nice pithy 20 seconds on who you are and what you do. So I'll start at the end. Sorry, you knew that was coming. I prepped you on that in the toilets. So I think question number 1 is, who are you, what do you do, and why are you here?
Right, my name is June O'Sullivan. I'm the Chief Executive of the London Early Years Foundation. I'm a social entrepreneur. I now run the largest childcare social enterprise in the UK, probably in Europe. And I lead a superstar team of staff of 670 staff who look after 4,500 children across London every day. Why am I here? Because I met James. And I couldn't say no. It was as simple as that, really.
Perfectly reasonable. Okay, super. Thank you for coming. Hiya.
Hi, I'm Lisa Ashworth, and I am the Chief Executive of the Europe, Middle East, Africa and India region for a company called PR Newswire. So I'm not actually, as it said, CEO of the whole business. Yeah. That's a $310 million business globally. So I just look after Europe, Middle East, Africa and India and spend most of my life on a plane. I've got about 400 people, and my favourite stat is they come from 59 different countries and they speak 57 mother tongue languages.
Wow.
Yeah, I love it. So we're a real kind of melting pot. And that's just actually our London office. We've got all our offices across India and Dubai and what have you. PR Newswire moves all the business news around the world, and I can pretty much say it's nearly all the news, because there's not a brand that that really, if it's a famous brand, it will be using us to get their story out. So we go to all the TV stations, radio, newspapers, social media, blogosphere, you name it, basically. And I've been doing that for about 14 years this June. Before that, I was at the Financial Times for 10 years. Before that, I was in the ad industry, which was wild. Yeah. And I'm here also because of James.
Right.
Yes!
James.
I'm a board member of Generation Success, and this is my first working gig for him.
Fabulous. James, you're doing well so far. Okay, thank you. Hi.
Well, my name's Lieutenant Colonel Lucy Giles, and I'm in the British Army, and I've been in the Army for 24 years. Wow. And I've commanded and led soldiers, mainly men, in various different locations. I've been to the Balkans for 3 operational tours, Northern Ireland 2 years, East Timor, Sierra Leone, and supported operations in Iraq and also deployed to Afghanistan as well. I'm currently the commander of New College at the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst, so I have the privilege of training and educating our officers into the British Army. So I hope that's a bit of a legacy that I can leave, a little bit of an imprint on those young men and women. But I'm also very proud that I'm a mum to Jess and Alex, and married very happily to my husband of 18 years nearly, Nick, who's in the Army. And why I'm here is because I know James through my sister, who's over there, so Sammy. And why have I agreed to come here? Because I hope that there's some stories that I can probably speak for us all that may add value and help you in your aspirations and your endeavours. So
superb, brilliant, thank you. Okay.
I'm Alison Wilcox. I'm the Group HR Director for BT. I've joined relatively recently, about 7 months ago. So I am here partly because I'm working my way into the business and finding out what we do, and this is a kind of critical talent group for me, and I'm a big fan of Paula, so I know that there's a lot of moving and shaking that goes on here, and I see it as a kind of critical lever for us in terms of where we want to go as a business more generally. I feel slightly put out that I don't know James at all, but I'm sure I can fix that before the end of the year.
Yeah, he's writing your name down now.
Superb.
Hi, I'm Kath Possamal. I currently work at Capita, which is one of those companies that everyone goes, yeah, I've heard of them, what do you do? So we're 75,000 people, and 60,000 of them in the UK. And we are kind of behind everything. So you pay us your TV licence, hopefully. You pay us your congestion charge if you drive into London, I'm afraid. If you phone William Hill to place a bet on the Grand National, you talk to us. If you phone the RSPCA because you spot a wounded hedgehog, you talk to us. And a whole host of other stuff. So, and literally, I mean, every day I find out something else that we do. We also actually recruit for the British Army. So we recruit.
Oh, there you go.
And I spent 10 months working on that contract for Capita. So I'm very interested to chat to Lucy, actually, about our mutual experiences. My current role is Director of Talent. So I'm responsible for leadership development, succession planning, graduate entry as well, and also diversity across the organisation. So that's kind of the reason for being here. I don't know James other than I have talked to him on the phone, if that counts. But he approached Capita, and I'm delighted to come and represent us.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And obviously you're all going to come back and do your own, keynote speaker sessions as well, right? So as well as networking with each other and recruiting everyone else. So superb. So that's the rest of our agenda for the year sorted with this wonderful panel. So we've got a number of questions. I'll start with the second one, which I think is quite hard. We've been running this great campaign in BT for BT Women called 15,000 Days, What Will Your Legacy Be? It's a blooming hard thing to answer, actually. I've avoided posting my response because I write something different every day. And you've already volunteered your legacy, but I wonder if the other lovely women you've had a think about what your legacy will be, or one of few legacies. Or maybe not.
I'll go first.
Good.
And I don't know what I'm going to say, so I'm going to think on the spot, but I kind of try and do it one person at a time. So each person that I work with, I kind of like to have protégés and bring them up through the organisation. And I love it when they overtake me and do really well, because they're going to kind of employ me when I'm on my way down, when I'm a bit older. And I've got some great superstars, and so I absolutely love watching them blossom. I don't have children, but they are my children. Yeah. And I've just moved offices, and it's kind of, I feel like I've just moved to a new home with my babies. So, so I kind of think it's one person at a time, and empowering them, and that's boys and girls. Men and women. And I do it in quite a cruel way, actually. So anybody who's ever worked with me knows my style, and you kind of always have that intake of breath with me where you go, but then you grow to love me, because I always tell people what I think is obvious that they might be doing wrong or that is going on, that people talk about behind their backs but never tell them. So I tell them. And it's awful at the very moment that you do it, but then afterwards they've got so much more time to do something about it and achieve it. And I think it's because people have done it to me as I've been going through the organisation. So it's been good, or organisations. It's been good for me, so I return the favour.
Superb. And your children do speak 57 different languages, which is quite an accomplishment in itself. Very good.
I felt like I taught them all.
You did. Any other
I'll go next. I think specifically in the context of today, a mantra I repeat constantly, and I'm determined to keep getting out my message to there, is to our graduate population, and actually a lot of women I mentor, is the network ruthlessly and have confidence to ask for opportunity. So those would be my two biggest, most important messages that I am constantly reiterating through every avenue, and particularly in Capital, which is a pretty male-dominated organisation, actually. I'm determined to overcome that through the next generation coming up and being more confident in asking for those opportunities.
But isn't networking horrible?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
It's not.
Okay. Okay, tell us more. How do we do it better?
I think that a lot of people look at networking as an add-on to their work. And it's not. It's so vitally important. It's an absolute... For me, it's part of my work. Well, you can see I'm networking with you all here later on, so don't leave yet. And it's just a way of widening not only your knowledge, but your circle of influence. There's so much... you have to look at it differently. You cannot look at it as, oh, God, I don't want to talk to that next person. It's oh, yeah, I've got to talk to that next person. So for me, it's more about... It's part of my work. It's not additional. It's not add-on. It's part of it.
It doesn't practice make perfect. So the more you throw yourself in, the better you get at it.
Yeah, I do have a strategy. I'm never the first to arrive, and I'm never the last to leave. And I work a room furiously for about an hour after I've I've arrived.
We're going to be monitoring you later.
She's there.
But you said no.
Well,
or maybe you said yes, but you were shaking your head.
I agree with Yvonne that it's part of your job, and if you're going to become a chief executive, which I hope every one of you want to, then, because they keep talking to us about getting old, guys, and so, when somebody has that succession plan conversation with you, you start looking at your watch and thinking, how many years have I got left? So one of the tactics for that is to mentor some women. And today is International Women's Day, so we'll focus a lot on the women today. So no offence to the men, but actually sometimes you just need to focus on the women. So, that's the first thing, I guess, is you're thinking about, especially there's not many of us who are women social entrepreneurs who are have grown really quite big businesses, and so we have to figure out who we are and what we do to support the next role. So the first thing is to think about your succession plan, which in effect is some of your legacy stuff. The second thing is, I get sick at the prospect of networking, but I know I have to do it. And it is quite right, it's part of your job. So you have to have a strategy to work the room, because you have to work the room, but you have to be kind. So many people work the room by looking over somebody else's shoulder. I cannot abide it. It is a bit like not taking account of the receptionist. If you go into a company, the first person you'll see is the receptionist or the administrator. They are the face of the organisation, and people who are disrespectful for them are people who mistreat them or look down on them, or they say, I'm just only, or I'm only working here. then frankly you're not fit to be a CEO, because you have lost emotional intelligence, you have lost empathy. So I think what we have to remember is when you're networking, you never know who's going to be your next boss. So don't be unkind and always look over the shoulder. People feel it. They feel it, and they feel that they're not important, therefore you mustn't talk to them. It's the most unusual and it's the most serendipitous connections that I've made that have opened doors for me and for other people. So I think there's a generosity that we need to build if we're going to network. We just mustn't be simply working the room because you're the next person up the greasy pole. Because for many of you in the room, for many of you women particularly, listen, the glass ceiling is double glazed in many places. And so it's your sisters who will help you up that glass ceiling quite often. So don't be unkind and don't be arrogant, and remember, always keep a sense of humour about the whole thing, or else you just go away and cut your wrists.
It's an interesting one on the glass ceiling thing, and it can link to a bit of legacy, because I don't know about you ladies here or people in the room, but I've been told, I mean, I don't realise I'm doing it, but they say, oh, you're a trailblazer, Lucy. You know, you've commanded, you know, an air dispatch squadron, you know, responsible for delivering UK's aerial delivery capability. Well, I suppose I am, actually. You know, you don't think that what you're doing is any particularly special. So do that, or you know, I'm currently the first person that's done this particular role as a female. I was recruited because I had the right key skills and experience. But of course, I recognise I have a real model place and responsibility now. So the glass ceilings can be smashed, but I think we just need to remember to roll out the ladder to bring people up through.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very good.
And if I can do that, that's good.
So I always go off piece with the questions, so you shouldn't have really bothered preparing them in the first place. But and then we'll get questions from the audience. What makes you really, really good at your jobs? What is the one thing that makes you really good at your jobs? Which women are always rubbish at saying anyway.
I think passion. Being passionate about what you do. I mean, I love what I do. And I think the more you love what you do, the easier it becomes, the more you want to learn about it, and the better you are about it. It gives you the energy to be, you know, to do it better.
Absolutely.
I'll go next, so we're going on the line. I think authenticity is hugely important. And actually, my career accelerated when I gave myself permission to be authentic. And it's very, and for a long time I thought I had to act with great gravitas and seriousness and pretend a level of knowledge I didn't have in some situations. And actually, after a while, I realised that's rubbish, actually. And being authentic makes you much more easy to relate to and work with the people around you. And you are able to give of your best. So actually, don't bother with the pretense would be some real strong advice, and be very authentic, particularly when you get into those leadership roles. And being authentic with the people who are working for you and following you will inspire much more devotion. Devotion's the wrong word. Engagement, you know, and discretionary effort from your team. So authenticity has definitely made the difference for me career-wise, I think.
Yeah. Very good.
I'd probably say something similar, actually. I think that we all grow up with a lot of shoulds in our head, and I think that is often the risk is that that's exacerbated a bit when you get into a relatively senior position in your career. And you think that there's a burden on you to behave in a certain way, or to dress in a certain way, or to always at all times be strategic. And I think there's a certain point where if you're smart about it, you just begin to let some of those things go, because they're really hard work to keep going, honestly. And in doing that, you are creating restrictions for yourself in terms of your ability to actually be the person that you really are, with all of your interests outside of work and all of your foibles and things that you're good at and not so good at. Because at the end of the day, we're all just working with each other as human beings. So And I think by dropping some of those pressures upon yourself about how you should be, you become actually someone who is much easier to connect with and relate to. And actually, at the end of the day, people make decisions about promotions or, you know, jobs or appointments on the basis of someone they want to work with. I mean, that it is as simple as that. Of course, you have to have the experience to do the job, but so many of the decisions that are made in organisations about who gets promoted and who gets on and who gets this job are really taken at the level of a basic human connection, which is, who would I actually like to work with? And of course you want to work with people who seem approachable, human and all the rest of it. So I think you have to work hard, I think you have to focus, I think you have to know what you want to do. But I also don't think that any of us should ever, and I would say this to men as well as women, don't lose touch with who you are really, because that is your secret sauce, really.
Very good.
I don't know about anybody else, but I sort of started out quite ambitious. I quite enjoyed the environment of joining the army. It's a bit of a weird thing if you're not from the army to sort of enjoy. But I like the challenge, the diversity, loads of things to do, very exciting job, travel and all that kind of stuff. And it was all a bit about me, actually. It was satisfying me. I enjoyed it, and I was pushing it out there and doing all these different things. And after a while, it really got to the stage where actually that ambition wasn't the most important and the most important thing about what I was doing. And that's when I became a little bit more successful, I think, because I didn't worry about, I didn't put it was, you know, took the self-induced pressures off about having to strive to do this and strive to do that. And my focus became about giving something back. You know, it changed the way I looked at things. And you want people to do well, you want to serve to lead, which is the motto of the Royal Military Academy Standards. You want to do the right thing, serve your country and all that sort of stuff. It's not about you anymore. It's about what you can give back to the organisation and for the greater good. And that altruism, I think, means that there's less pressure. You can be yourself and embrace and be true to yourself. And I think that, therefore, success will follow. It's a byproduct of that approach, maybe.
Absolutely. Very good.
I don't really know the answer. There's kind of three things that are coming to mind. I know I'm very brave. I'm always the first person in the room that's got the courage to say something. And it's always what most people are thinking, because everybody starts nodding afterwards, but I've got the balls to be able to say it. I think I work really hard. I think I work harder than anybody else, again, in the company. I work longer hours, across weekends, a stupid o'clock. And I think I'm quite creative and think of things which just maybe lots of people, I see in work, lots of people just do what the last person did, or do what they're expected to do, or do what we've always done. And I quite often, I think I cheat, actually, because I always used to cheat when I was younger at Monopoly and things like that. So I think I find ways to do things quicker, or ways to do things differently, or to amuse me. And so I think that's become creative. I think cheating's become creative. I've never thought of myself as a woman, and I've only really become a woman in the last couple of years when people have been talking about women and networking and everything. I was always just another person. I was always a bit different, because obviously I wasn't a fella or a boy, but I've just never thought of myself as being anything that I could obviously do what my brother could do and my father could do and any other man could do, obviously. I've never thought I couldn't. So I think that's, again, the courage.
Absolutely.
So I just recommend everybody to just think you can do it and you can do it.
There you go. No. I totally agree.
If not, give me a ring and I'll
do it for you.
We know that gender-balanced workplaces are actually more profitable. So if you just wanted from a purely economic perspective, then work with your, work guys and girls work together. Now, in our world of childcare, getting men into childcare is quite tricky. It's quite tricky for many reasons, which we won't go into now, but I did set up the Men in Childcare Network for London. It did take a woman to set up the Men in Childcare Network. But my own staff kept saying to me, June, you must do something else. And because I didn't have enough time, obviously, I was obviously got spare time. what did you call it, the sidebar. So I was obviously falling out of the sidebar here. So we set up the Men in Childcare Network to really, for those two reasons really. One was because gender-balanced workplaces would work better, and also because women need to be women and men need to be men. And the point of that is you bring together those skills. So some women feel that they have to behave like men. I haven't found many men who want to behave like women, mind. But generally, that's never a good place to go, because men have their strengths and women have theirs, and we have to figure out that way. And that's partly the sexism that we have to deal with. And it's often because it's so subtle. So women would be accused of being bossy, but you might call the chap being quite strategic thinker. Or leadership is sometimes like if you're female, sometimes is perceived as being a little bit aggressive for a woman. Whereas really, you're applying a particular distributive leadership style because you're actually wanting to kick your ass of your directors to actually do the job you ask them to do. So it's again about how things are perceived, I think, is quite important in terms of the broadness of that, and about the confidence that women can bring to that conversation, because it is about the richness of weaving the two together that creates the better options. So at Leaf, the London Early Years Foundation, we now have 7.5% of our staff are male, and you might think, well, that's pretty low. But that's pretty high in childcare, where the government target is 2%, and most people aren't even anywhere near that. Well, it's interesting because it does make you focus on the kind of dynamics and the values in the business. And actually, the biggest barrier to men into childcare turned out to be women, because actually they were not that comfortable with opening up what seems to be a fairly easy female space to males. And how do you have that different conversation? And how do you reconfigure those relationships? And this is a place where actually you can rise to the top without having to take on the wider world. And if this is going to broaden this out, does that mean it closes down opportunities? So it's quite interesting to look at this kind of thing from your own perspective, and looking at your own workplace and the kind of values around what that means. And so for us, it was quite interesting. As a consequence now, Men in Childcare have got a whole, I blog and tweet, which I'm sure you're all doing right now. And I tweeted about this in advance. So I expect that all of you are out there social networking, girls and boys, because we need you too. But it's interesting because how social media can actually generate quite bigger conversations. And the one thing I would say is also women are good at talking. We are good at talking. There is nothing wrong with this guy, You all sort of go, is this a sexist thing to say? Is this a stereotype? No. I work with small children. I love small children. Girls talk fast, often, quicker, and that's the end of the matter. And so, why don't we use what we're good at? Boys are different. They're good at other things altogether. So, the skill sometimes is using our conversations, our opportunities, our networking. Yvonne makes it quite clear, it is quite part of the way we think about it. So it's about really picking out what are the good things that we're good at, that add value to what we're doing, and how it extends that kind of network, and how it creates greater strength in the business, instead of always feeling we must close down some of the more feminine aspects of us, and actually being brave about that. And I think that's quite interesting, particularly if you're in what I could call quite a gendered focused job, which I guess in BT you'd have a lot of engineers who are more likely to be male. I mean, I don't know, I'm making this assumption. Right. But in childcare, I can tell you, it's mostly female. And so it's around how do you twist this round, not by being different, but actually by enriching what you're good at, and actually making it exactly that. There you are, and making it your superfood.
Well, then what you're doing is you're maximising talent.
Totally.
Embracing diversity, maximising talent, getting the best out of your workforce.
A crack in the double glaze, girls. A crack in the double glaze.
All right, great stuff. We're going to hand over to some questions. I think I've got some roving mics somewhere. Yep, there's a few wiggling around. So, questions to anyone on the panel, all on the panel. Who wants to put their hand up? And oh, lots around.
Just down here. She definitely had her hand up first.
Yes. All right, they're coming. The mic's coming. There you go.
That was really interesting, thank you. My question is about networking and being authentic. I'm a clinical neuroscientist, and my interest is in dementia. And not only have I been taught by some really, really international professors who are all male, I don't really find it possible to actually produce a network that has enough female members who are interested in clinical neuroscience, particularly in dementia. And even more so, I did find 2 women of colour, but they left the profession because they were disillusioned, because they found it quite male-orientated. So what advice would you give to somebody who wants to produce a female network within mostly male-dominated, classical, traditional type of profession?
Good question. Okay.
Can I introduce you to somebody? Because we're doing a lot of work. There's a lot of neuroscience in childcare, as you know. Yeah. And one of my ex-staff, what you call my proteges, she's just writing a book on neuroscience in this, and I'd like to introduce you to so there you go.
Networking right there.
As BT would say, it's good to talk.
Exactly, we would. There you go. So that's that solved.
I haven't got a question as such, but with my BT Health and Safety head on, or hat, there's a little latch on that thing there that I'm actually trip over it as you get up. So I just
risk assessment. We're on there.
Have you been looking at that the entire time? Right. There you go. We're solving problems like this, so what's next? If we can't solve it in 20 seconds, we were so disappointed.
Hello.
Yes, hello. My question is for June. What role has cultural capital play in your success? And if I may quickly declare an interest, my company provides leadership and self-development programs based on African philosophy. And yes, there is such a thing. And I tell so at the universities and schools. So what role has cultural capital played in your success? Thank you.
The concept of Ubuntu, Desmond Tutu, is actually key to our work. And if you read any of the books that I've written, I just dropped that in, on leading in the early years, you'll find me quoting it quite often. So the cultural capital is very interesting because as a social enterprise, we subsidise 48% of our children. 76% of our children speak English as an additional language. So for us, it's very significant. And I think it's really underestimated the power of cultural capital. Because quite often it's not we are targeting children from poorer families. And the reason I set up LEAF is because it drives me to distraction that bright, capable children who have come from a disadvantaged background are excluded, and that the worst nursery care, when nurseries are so important when you think about neuroscience, actually are not, they don't get them. So I had to prove that it was possible to build good quality nurseries in areas of disadvantage, and that children could have a wonderful start. And for that, cultural capital is key. And the proof is in the pudding, because we now exceed in terms of Ofsted. Ofsted is defines us as good, bad or indifferent. So all of our nurseries are either good or outstanding. Now that has never really happened before. All of our nurseries in London and outside. So we exceed those standards. So the point is it's possible. Half my staff, 59% of my staff are women of colour. Are indeed men of colour. And that's not because I go out looking or anything. It's because when you have a set of values that are important and that are attractive to the company, then you collect people from different parts of the community. When you open places in different parts of the community, and if you're open to the idea and you're friendly and you're community focused and stuff, you get superstar staff that come to you from a different variety. And then if you use the skills of those people and you value the different cultural kind of expectations and values and experiences, not in a tokenistic way, I can't be doing with that, but actually, and enrich it and weave it into the kind of notion of the Ubuntu, which is all about, the village that takes to raise a child. And you build that. So I have my parents working for me. I have 60 apprentices. And now they're on our HR pipeline. You like that notion of the HR pipeline. All of those things.
what do you build? You build a company where people don't want to leave. You build a company where people are advising their friends to come and work for you. You build a company where you can enrich and grow different experiences. You build a company where your staff are writing books about neuroscience and you're supporting them. That's what you do, and that's why it's cultural capital. It cannot be underestimated.
Very good. Got a question? Question up here.
Hello, good evening. Hi. All the ladies on the panel, just like to know, how do you balance your work-life balance, your home life, as well as, I can imagine, having children and the need to obviously feel the need to go back into the workplace, maybe too early, or, how have you done that? Can you give us some experiences, please?
Can I go first again? I absolutely am. I'm probably going to be the only one that says this, but I don't balance it. No. I only do work. Yes. And my husband calls himself a latchkey husband. Oh, I know. I just don't. I just can't. I'm a shocking example.
But honestly,
so hopefully the rest are much better.
No, honesty. Very honest.
Well, I've got. I mean, my motto is sleep gets in the way. Yeah. Because again, like you, when you work for yourself, you have to be passionate about. I keep talking about passion. Yeah. You have to be passionate about what you do. I'm not part of a corporate environment, so I never do 9 to 5. I'm constantly on the go, and it sounds awful, but if I'm not doing something, I get anxious.
Yeah. Know the feeling.
That's not good, which is not good.
I'll go on. I think I have quite good work-life balance, although I would use the phrase work-life integration, actually, which I think is more fluid and more relevant for how we tend to work now. And I only work 4 days a week, so on Fridays I'm at home, I take my kids to school, I pick my kids up from school, I go for a run, I go to the supermarket, I do the dry cleaning. But I have my BlackBerry in my back pocket, and if anyone phones me and needs to get hold of me, they can. I'll answer the odd email, I'll work if I need to. I also work from home always on a Monday, so I can take the kids to school. Again, I see them when they come in for 5 minutes, and I say, go away, I'm working. So I've managed to achieve a pretty good balance, I think. And I managed to achieve that by being very strict about the fact I work 4 days a week. I joined Capita, and when I joined, I said, I work 4 days a week. And the headhunter said, well, this is a full-time job. I said, yep, and I'll do it in 4 days a week. And I think if you manage your time effectively and you're very clear with the people around you about what your boundaries are, people generally tend to respect that, and you absolutely can make it work. Yes, you have to do the odd Sunday afternoon for an hour or so, but not every week. And I think it's absolutely achievable.
Very good. Very good. Alison?
Yeah, I'd tend to say something similar, actually. When I have 2 sons, teenagers, and I remember when I was pregnant with my older son, a male colleague of mine at work who had 4 children said, actually, you will find it easier when you have children, which I couldn't believe at all, because before that I was a bit of a work monster. But actually that proved to be actually quite insightful, because it forces you to choose. I mean, like everybody else in this room, have not got every hour, every day, the balance that I think is completely perfect. But my standards for myself are, which I do struggle with sometimes, but my standards for myself have to be, on balance, over a week or a month or whatever, do I think I've got it more or less right? And I am quite ruthless, actually, about not working at weekends. I look at emails, but I don't regularly do a big chunk of work at weekends. Once I get home in the evening, unless there is something really exceptional going on, I won't do work in the evening either, because I think that life is short, and actually I now that my sons are teenagers, they're not going to be at home for very much longer. And although they'll probably come back, I understand that's the thing now. But anyway, in my head, I'm thinking, I've only got a few more years. And I'm really conscious of the passing of the time, and the fact that actually, a lot of the stuff that I could choose to do, keep trying to answer every last email or something, you're at the point of diminishing returns. And I don't want to look back on this period in my life and think that I didn't do justice to my family, which is not just my children, but actually my husband, my mum, who's relatively recently widowed. I don't want to feel like I didn't do justice to that, as well as having a career. And so I do try to say, even if each day isn't perfect, over a week or a month, that actually I have done the right thing, enough of the right thing to be as good as I could be, given that I'm only human in both those zones of life.
Well, I joined the army when, just after the fact, when you decided to get married, you had to leave. That when you were pregnant, you had to leave. So for the army, the maternity and paternity arrangements have evolved into allowing us to work in a different way, and which is, I think, the right thing, a good thing, and a healthy thing for everybody, including the kids, for men and for women, I have to say. Do you get balance right to answer? I think we all give ourselves guilt trips, don't we? Yeah. On whether we've got it right. I'm continually asking my daughter, "Do you think are you all right with Mummy working?" And she says to me, and it's quite interesting. She says, "Mum, it makes you you, and I love you." Aww. So I don't know if we get it right all the time. I'd always love to spend more time with the children. I'd always like to be better at work. I'd always like to do this, that, and everything else. But life is too short. You've got to embrace opportunities when they come up, enjoy it. But you don't want to be looking in the back mirror and thinking, "Oh, I wish I'd done that." You know.
Very good. Yeah. So. Okay.
I'm a bit, I guess, a confusion of all of this.
No, that surprises me.
It stresses me out when we start to have to talk about work-life balance. My husband would say I'm a complete workaholic. My children probably say I'm a workaholic. But on the other hand, it doesn't feel like work. And that's what I often say to my children, who are all grown up now. And I tell you, they do come back. They boomerang back. They boomerang back, they boomerang out and stuff, yeah. So my eldest son is 35, and he's living with me, having lived in China for 4 years. So it's great, actually. He rings up and says, he gets me now, and he says, "Mum, will you be, where are you?" I rang him a while ago and said, "I forgot to tell Dad that I'm actually speaking at something tonight, so I won't be home." And my husband was complaining because he hasn't seen me for 5 days because I was everywhere else. And so it's quite, it's a kind of interesting thing. It's partly the whole guilt thing. And I think, but listen, I work in childcare. We are on this earth to make it opportunities for you to have work-life balance. Without the childcare infrastructure... I'm sorry. So if we're not working on Saturday and Sunday and setting up open days and giving you the opportunity to come and find out and doing parents' meetings and everything else, what would you do? So some of us have to do this whole thing. But, you know, if you enjoy your work, so I'll be writing a blog in bed. This is frequent, I have to tell you, on my laptop, a blog in bed, so that's why you have to read it. Or writing a book, or doing whatever it is. But I don't mind, because it doesn't, you know, it keeps your brain going and stuff. Yeah. What you must avoid, though, is domestics. So... I mean this, I'm not talking about the washing up just yet. But it's the thing about, you know, it's the point you made about emails. I will read an email and stuff, but I am not answering them if there's some dreary thing that you can deal with on Monday morning. But if it's really interesting, or James rings, you know, you obviously answer. So I think it's about making sure that you don't get locked into doing domestics on the after hours, but you do things that are going to enrich you and humour you and make you feel strong and interesting. But in the meantime, you know, a shout out for all of those of us who run nurseries.
Yeah, very good. Right. One more question.
Hello there. Thank you so much for a fascinating discussion. Absolutely. Very, very good. Very entertaining. Just to bring it back to the question on the slide behind you, about increasing the number of women in senior positions and ensuring women in senior positions are from diverse backgrounds. Quotas, targets, or none of the above?
I think quotas.
So yes to quotas. Okay.
I think quotas.
Any more for quotas? No? Who's a definite no
the
for a
right
quota?
person for the job. So in my firm, I've got over half of the board is women, are women. Over half of the team, of the managers are women. They're just very, very good, and so they get the jobs.
Yeah.
And then there's other women, because there's senior women hiring, that they're also making sure, but it's the best person for the job, I think.
Okay. Any other views?
I believe we need to be more proactive than that, because I don't think that, unfortunately, is working. And I constantly have arguments with my board who say, well, we're a meritocracy. I said, but then 10% of our managing directors are women. Does that mean the women are crap? I don't think you really believe that. So I think part of it is making the business case more strongly, and that's really annoying because no one has to make the business case for the men or for the white people. So why should we have to make, or the straight people, or whatever we're talking about?
Quotas, but for men for the longest time. So I think quotas for women.
I wouldn't go that strongly,
Oh,
but,
yeah,
but I
would.
think targets and more positive
I would.
action. More positive
Yeah.
action. Absolutely.
Okay. Positive action.
I think it's
best person for the job.
I think it's really about networking and giving people a hand up. And so the more women that you have out there, it's about supporting the next woman up. There was a piece of research done. I don't know, I can't remember who did it now, but there was an assumption that women hold things to themselves because they don't want somebody else, quite taking their jobs just yet. And actually that was debunked entirely. And actually what they found was women were actually more open to bringing somebody along and opening the door for them. So I think it's about making that more visible. Now, quotas always get us in a bad place. We're always accused of not being able to do it on the fact that we're good enough and stuff. So we might have to reclaim the notion of quota and use different kind of languages, whether it's a leg up. So, for example, I was looking for a loan for the business, and Santander Bank were doing a breakthrough women thing so that you could be a mentor for... and I thought, well, I'm going to need a loan from the business quite soon. This is a bank, so let me do this breakthrough women lark just so I'm in there. So if they say no... It is what you call a business tactic, but it did make me think a little bit more about how do you create different and useful language. We talked earlier about women using conversation and language in a different way. So I'm kind of comfortable with the notion that we're going to try and change things. I prefer if it would happen naturally, but, we were up there with the no Irish, the no dogs and the no blacks. So, we know it's not going to be done without some kind of leverage. I just wish we could do it with some kind of female leverage that would kind of open the door. And maybe tonight, this is the first start of a big debate about how do you do that. Yeah. And maybe BT might provide the option for women like us, social entrepreneur women, because we get, as I say, double glazed, remember, for women like us to become part of their NED boards, pay us reasonable money so I can put it back into the business and actually take some more on. So guys, start here.
Alison and I are wondering how we're going to get you out of the building tonight. Oh my God. Okay, we are overrun. I'm sure you'll agree. Sorry? Oh, all right, fine. We'll finish with Alison.
I think this is... I'm not trying to sit on the fence. I do think this is difficult. And I was thinking when I was listening to my colleagues on the stage about that, because I have been in a business where we went down the targets route, in large part because we hadn't made any progress through goodwill and everybody saying they wanted to do this, which I have no reason to doubt over the previous 2 or 3 years. And so we, with some trepidation, went down the targets route. We won't have time to rehearse all the reasons why all sorts of people, including the group that should theoretically take advantage from that, feel uneasy sometimes about the concept of targets. I think that if you go down the targets route, you have to be prepared to have consequences to not meeting the targets. And you have to therefore be prepared to say, in a commercial business, we don't care that you've delivered the financial numbers or the other things that we've asked you to do. We are going to penalise you for this one specific area of your performance or contribution. Now, I'm not arguing that whether it's right or wrong to do that, but the mistake that we made in the organisation the big corporate where I previously came from, was we relied too much on the targets to actually drive through action. And what happened was that the people who were always quite inclined to make things happen, made things happen, and those who weren't, there's nothing sinister about them, but they simply didn't regard it as a priority, didn't really make things happen, and therefore 3 or 4 years later we were still in a position in which, you know, it wasn't that we hadn't brought people in from the groups that we were targeting, but effectively the number is so small that you're always, you know, if you lose 1 or 2, you're always just trying to fill up the bath, you know, while you've got the plug out. So I think it is a tricky one. Personally, I am cautious about going down the route of forcing targets or quotas, but I do also think that, you know, there comes a point, it's a discussion that we're starting to have here, about whether or not you don't have to force it a little bit more, because until you reach a critical mass, then actually you don't tip the organisation into this is just the way that we do business. So, sorry, that's a long and slightly waffly answer, but if the answer was simple, one organisation or another would have proved that that's what, you know, it either works or it doesn't work. But it's a big debate. I think it is something that we're thinking about.
They have done it in lots of the Scandinavian countries, haven't they? Through governments actually forcing it.
Yeah, that's right. At board level.
Which then therefore filters down.
Yeah.
But building the pipeline of women throughout the organisation and prepping women for the right kind of jobs and the right job moves and putting in the support network is what we're absolutely committed to doing in BT, and that's the bit I'm going to help, you know, work with Alison on, because that definitely funnels the pipeline.
Yes.
Okay, good.
It's a
So,
numbers game.
lots of learnings from today, not least dragging our ladders around. I'll be taking my ladder everywhere, dragging women along. I'll be creatively cheating wherever I can and admitting it. And I'll definitely be kissing the receptionist. I do buy my receptionist coffee every day, so no one must leave before embracing the receptionists, who are truly wonderful in this building, and lots of other, you know, meaningful messages as well. So I'd like to, you know, just extend a huge round of applause for our panellists, and thank you so much for joining me. Woo! Okay, it's nearly over. We're nearly onto our you know, respectable networking. Not leaning over everyone's shoulders. Remember all the lessons, okay? Work the room. Don't be the last to leave. But James, you're just going to wrap up with a little something, I think, aren't you? So do you want to come on stage?
I was going to say, as part of Generation Success tradition, after every talk, we like to present each of the speakers with a certificate of appreciation. So I'm going to start with Dr. Yvonne. Can I say thank you very much?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Come on my wall.
I don't think we have.
Are we having a... Oh.
To come back.
Thank you very much. Catherine, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Come across, come out. Alison, thank you very much for speaking.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, come closer. Lucy, thank you very much. Great to finally meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
Lisa, thank you very much. You have indeed.
Thanks, darling.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. June, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
So,
that really is the end.
One more
no,
thing.
One more thing.
One more thing.
The script.
Yeah, I know. I like to change the script. But I was going to say, one of the things I heard from the panelists was to be brave. And yesterday, I announced to the team I had a great idea. And that was that I was going to raise £50,000 by the 31st of March.
Yeah.
But I said to them, how do we do that? Well, today's raffle is the first stage of making it happen. So
I'm not leaving till you've given him the money. Oh my goodness. Yeah. No one's ever going to come to my events again.
Oh, yeah. But today's event is the first stage of making it happen. And then we as Generation Success will be doing a series of stuff to really enable us to reach that 50K target. So if you can tweet hashtag 50K challenge, get behind us, I'd really be appreciated. Thank you so much for coming.
Super duper. Right. Great. And we are networking outside upstairs. If there's any tea or coffee left, it'll be a miracle. But, you know, that's not the point. It's just about talking to each other.